party started. Just going to double check on my phone to see if I am live in the group. Sometimes it takes a second to refresh. But if this is your first time tuning into one of these, I want to say welcome. My name is Colleen Mitchell. I am a life coach, a writer. I have a podcast on type 1 diabetes. And I'm going to make sure that's not going to give me any feedback. I also have a full-time job working in the power industry. And I just recently did a podcast interview with a career coach named Julia Toothaker. And we had an amazing discussion about like my full-time job, what I do, my whole career journey. And I'm going to post that link in the main discussion thread so you guys can take a listen to it. It was really fun. It's the most fun I've ever had being interviewed for something. So I will just encourage you guys to go listen to that. So today is part 2 of the recap of some key themes and lessons from past lives that I've done inside this Facebook group. And I will be making this video available on other channels. So if you're seeing this outside of the Facebook group, come join us. The link is in the description. So just to jump right into things, some strategies to beat imposter syndrome. Number 1 is to change the way you think about yourself. Number 2 is to know that you're not alone. Number 3 is, instead of making excuses for your accomplishments, say thank you. Number 4 is to redirect this compare and despair thought into, I'm on my path and they're on theirs. So it's about staying in your own lane. And then the 5th one is to take the opportunity to learn more. How to handle any distraction. Distractions are really just circumstances that we've judged or labeled as distractions. What I consider a distraction may not be considered a distraction for you. When we're uncomfortable about doing things, we're more likely to get distracted. What it comes down to here is allowing that urge to procrastinate or get distracted, but then not reacting to it. So ways that I do this is by putting my phone in a drawer. So there's a cart behind me here, and I usually put it in the drawer, so it's out of sight. It's literally out of mind. I use a do not disturb schedule. I use blocking functions like freedom, and there's another one called forest, where you plant a tree and you let the tree grow while you're not on your phone, and at the end of it, you have a tree. I also turn off notifications. That goes along with do not disturb. Another way to handle distractions is to remember that emergencies are not announced over email, and they're usually not announced over text either. So you don't have to worry about a true emergency, like missing one, if you don't go into your email inbox or if you don't check your message notifications, because true emergencies are not announced that way. You'll get a call. You can also use noise generators or listen to music without lyrics. That's what I do a lot. I have basically a constant stream from YouTube going on. It's an Epic Music stream that's actually been streaming since December 6th of last year. So it's kind of a long-going live stream, but I listen to that. You can also establish ground rules about your space, about what kind of things that you want to allow into your space. Maybe it has to do with your family members, so your kids, your husband, your dogs, your cats. Maybe you have some ground rules to help handle with those distractions. Having a clean space also helps with distraction. I know that if my desk is cluttered, then I feel less organized, I feel less present, I feel less able to focus. And if I just take a minute to make sure that my space is clear and clean and it looks nice, then I feel less distracted. I also sometimes use full screen mode on my computer. So I think it's F11 will put you into full screen mode, and then I think either escape or F11 again will pull you out of full screen mode, but that will get rid of your taskbar at the bottom, and that's especially useful if you have something like Outlook open and that and you have notifications turned on for Outlook, or maybe you have Microsoft Teams. So this is more applicable to my full-time job. But if I do full screen mode, then I won't see those notifications popping up and distracting me. And then a really good way to handle distractions is to give yourself a limited amount of time. This relates to Parkinson's law, which states that the things that we do will expand to fill the time that we give ourselves to do it. So if you give yourself an entire day to do something, it's going to take an entire day. If you give yourself a year to lose weight, it's going to take a year, if not longer. The more time that we give ourselves to do something, the more time that thing is going to take. So if you give yourself a limited amount of time, and actually force yourself to stick to it, you might be surprised how much less you get distracted and how much more you get done. Next up, how to build self-discipline. First off, don't rely on motivation and willpower. Motivation is fleeting like a hummingbird, and willpower is a finite resource that you deplete as your day goes on and as you make decisions. Make it a habit. Build it like you would build any other habit. Discipline is a habit. It's the thing that you do over and over again, and just make it a habit. And there are plenty of different ways that you can build habits, and I've done a live on those. And I can't remember if I covered that in last week's Oh, no, it's coming up later today. So yeah, build a habit. I'll cover that later. Take what works and leave the rest. So if you're looking to a bunch of different people for ideas on what to do, pick one person, use their ideas, see if it works. If it doesn't, put them back. And if something out of that resonates with you, keep that one thing, but put the rest back. So don't think that it's all or nothing with what you have to take from different teachers. So take what works and leave the rest. Another way to build self-discipline is to be willing to change what you don't like. And what I mean here is what you don't like about yourself. We can't control other people. We can't control the circumstances in the world, but we can control how we respond to it. And we can control ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. So if you're not willing to change yourself, then you might have a little bit of a harder time building that self-discipline. You can also subtract the temptations. So if you know that you're triggered by Cheez-Its in the house, and if you have Cheez-Its in the house, you'll eat the entire box no matter what, don't buy Cheez-Its. That can be a really simple way to help you build self-discipline, is by not buying or having the things that in your life that you're tempted by. You can also check your mindset. So just check in with yourself to see how you're doing. And then the last tip here is to take extreme ownership. So this means being responsible for everything in your world, even if it's not yours to actually, if you're not actually responsible for it. So if you're not actually to blame for something, but you still take responsibility for that thing happening, that's extreme ownership. And it shows that you are very self-disciplined, that you have this trust with yourself that you can do whatever it is you need to do. All right, constraining your focus to get more done. Limiting your choices results in better decisions. We all constrain things in our lives, whether we realize it or not. Some of it's just natural, some of it's how we were raised, and some of it is conscious. When you don't give yourself the option to do something, your brain shuts up. So a really good example of this is like if you're trying to stop drinking a lot, and this isn't like quitting drinking, just maybe stopping over drinking. If you give yourself a rule to not do something in a certain situation, and it's just there, it's a rule, you don't give yourself the option, you won't have the brain chatter about it. You won't go, maybe like, should I not? I mean, it's like, I kind of want to, but if you give yourself the option to do it, then your brain is going to give you all sorts of reasons to do it. So if you don't give yourself the option, your brain's going to shut up. Ask yourself what you spend a lot of time thinking about. What's taken over your time? What do you think about more than once that you really shouldn't? So if you think more than once about something, then it's a signal that you need to process it, pay a little bit more attention to it, and then constrain it so you don't have to worry about it. You can also create personal rules of constraint. So we don't lend money, but we will freely give it. If the situation calls for it and we are happy with giving that money, we won't lend it. That's like a personal rule of constraint, is we won't give money, but we will lend it. No, it's the opposite. We won't lend money, but we will give it. You can do one thing at a time. Multitasking is a myth. No matter how many times people say that, I'm a great multitasker, I can do all sorts of things at once, you really can't. Your brain is designed for single tasking, and when you think you're multitasking, what you're actually doing is task switching, and that has an actual cost to your brain power. Another way to constrain your focus is to ignore the self-negotiation, and that also has to do with giving yourself the option and your brain being really chattery. If you ignore that self-negotiation and you don't give yourself the option to do something, again, your brain is going to shut up. You can act from your future self. You can practice discipline, which we just talked about. And you can also subtract things from your life. And the simplest way to decide what to subtract is to pay attention to what's frustrating you. And I give an example of this in the full live video I did on that. Now, habits. How to build a rock solid habit. Choose a methodology or pick and choose from each and take what works, leave the rest. James Clear has an outline. It's make it obvious or invisible, make it attractive or unattractive, make it easy or difficult, make it satisfying or unsatisfying. Take baby steps. You can also look into Gretchen Rubin's 21 strategies for habit change, and all 21 are really good to pay attention to. Another method is don't break the chain. This comes from a Jerry Seinfeld interaction where you put X's on the calendar for each day you did something, and soon enough, the goal is to not break the chain. You can also consider things experiments. So if you're curious about how to do something, consider it an experiment, and if the experiment quote unquote fails, then you learn from it and you make new decisions moving forward. Following through on commitments. When we don't follow through on commitments, it's because we're avoiding a negative feeling. So some tips here are, if you can do it today, do it today. Write down what you want to do. Pay someone if you don't follow through. Picture the benefits of following through versus the natural consequences of not. Practice being uncomfortable. Break down your commitment or your project into milestones and then track them. Get some perspective. Follow the 4 C's. And these are: catch yourself in the moment when you realize that you want to give up. Choose to do what you committed to doing to the end result that you're really after. Cheer yourself on after you make that decision, and celebrate your success after you've made it to the end. 9, only commit to what you really truly believe you're a hell yes about. And then lastly, commit to just 5 minutes. The next one is life is 50-50 and that's okay. No matter what we do, life is 50% positive and 50% negative. When we continue to resist, we end up sucking all of the joy out of the positive half, which makes it seem a lot more negative. We think that there will be better than here. And I think everybody does this. We have a whole saying about it: the grass is greener on the other side. But in reality, we never know if there will be better than here. And so by thinking that there is better than here, we're making here less enjoyable. When you reach your big goals, you will still have the 50-50. It's just a different flavor. The point of life is not to be happy 100% of the time. If you think about it, there are situations where you don't want to be happy. It just happens. And trying to force yourself to be happy in those situations is just going to make you feel out of alignment with yourself. So where does the balance come from? It comes from the willingness to feel all of the negative emotions along with the positive emotions. Because when we push away the negative, we're also pushing away our capacity to feel the positive. Discomfort is the currency of your dreams, and the only way out is through. We're going to experience the discomfort either way, so it might as well be productive. Overcommitting and self-forgiveness. When you're overcommitting, you are trying to afford everything right now, and the currency is your time. So ask yourself this question: what's truly important to you? The truth is that it's super easy to overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 10 years. You get to decide whether or not your workload is overcommitting. Question why you want to be busy. Simply slow down and accept yourself. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, ask yourself questions and let yourself answer. And forgive yourself for the judgment of your behavior, not for the behavior itself. Those are 4 simple steps to self-forgiveness. And I find it's a lot more empowering to think, I do a lot and I choose to do a lot, rather than saying, I have too much to do, or I don't have time to do all the things I want to do. It's a lot more empowering to say, I choose to do a lot. Why do you stall on starting goals? I think we all like fresh starts. We're ambitious with new beginnings. We think we can do a lot more than we actually can do. The eyes are bigger than the stomach in goal setting. We think this is the year, but then things happen to prove why this is not the year, and then it's never the year. So we just never start. We're in a hurry. Be curious about why. Once we get it all on paper, we get overwhelmed because it's a lot. And then we don't do anything. We also think that there's a right one to work on first. And there's never a right one. Whatever you choose is the right thing to work on. Following through even when. So you don't need to feel like doing something in order to do it. You can just do it. We don't feel like brushing our teeth in the morning, but we do it because we just do it. Following through on your commitments isn't a guarantee that you'll get the result you want from what you've planned, but it does mean that the likelihood is much higher. Following through even when means you follow through on the things you planned, even when you don't feel like it. Because, like we just mentioned, you don't need to feel like doing something in order to do it. You have an equal choice between thinking that not following through means that you're broken, and thinking that not following through is an opportunity to grow as a person. Next is how to be efficient. Being efficient means achieving maximum productivity and working in a well-organized way that reduces wasted effort and expense. I mentioned this earlier, but Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time allotted. At the core of efficiency is how you think about the things that you do. You can focus on the most important tasks first. Intentionally get to the deep work or into the flow. Use a distraction list. So maybe you have a notepad by yourself or on your desk when you're working, and if you think of something that's distracting, write it down. You'll pay attention to it later. You can break your tasks and your goals down to the goal atom, so the very smallest possible piece of this goal that you could do next. Break it down to that and then do it. You can make fewer decisions in the moment by making them ahead of time, and automate as much as you can. And then the last one that I'm going to cover today is boundaries and expectations. Boundaries define what I do in response to someone crossing the line that I've drawn. A common misconception is that boundaries govern what other people do. It's not true. The formula for a real boundary looks like this. Behavior plus consequence equals boundary. Boundaries are in place to protect us. They are not there for us to be rude, because no one knows what's best for you except you. Expectations are the strong belief that something will happen or something will be the case. When you have expectations, don't make them not being met mean that there is something wrong with you or that there's something wrong with the other person or thing. That is the end of this, these 2 weeks of summarizing these past live videos. If you want to watch the first video, I will post a link in the description and you can go watch that one. And with that, I will say goodbye and I will see you guys next week. Bye.